Okay, let's unpack this. Ever wonder how an application you're using might need the power of a large language model? Maybe to generate some text or even analyze an image, but, do it securely without sending your private stuff just anywhere.
Yeah, it's a really fundamental challenge, I think, in building AI experiences that people can actually trust.
Absolutely. And today, we're doing deep dive into a specific concept. It comes from documentation excerpts about something called the Model Context Protocol, MCP for short.
Right.
Think of MCP as maybe a standard way for apps on your device or maybe elsewhere to talk to AI models. And our focus today is one feature inside MCP called sampling.
And our mission here is really to get clear on what sampling is, how the documentation says it works, and maybe most importantly, why its design puts you, the user, firmly in control. It prioritizes your input.
Right, because traditionally an app might just ping some cloud AI service directly with your data. But sampling, as it's described here, seems to flip that. So what is it like at its core?
Well, sampling is presented as a pretty powerful MCP feature.
Right.
It's where applications, that's the server side, they request AI completions, from LLMs. But crucially, they route that request through your client.
Through my client, so software running like locally on my machine.
Exactly. Your desktop app, your mobile app, whatever it is. The server doesn't talk straight to the big AI model in the cloud. It talks to your software first.
Oh, right.
And this is really where that core principle kicks in the human-in-the-loop design. The documentation really emphasizes this. It's not just technical plumbing. It's about making sure you keep control over what context the AI sees and what kind of output it generates. It's a privacy thing, a security boundary.
Okay. So walk me through that flow. The server sends a request to my client. What happens next?
So the flow is really designed with that user oversight baked in. First, yes, the server sends its request to your client. Then your client looks at this request. And critically, it's designed so you or your client settings can actually modify it or even just reject it outright.
Wait, my software can actually change what the app is asking the AI before it even goes to the model. That sounds, well, pretty powerful for privacy.
It really is. So after that potential review and modification step, then your client initiates the actual sampling from the LLM. It does the talking to the AI model.
Right.
Then once the AI's answer comes back from the model, your client reviews that as well. And again, the design allows for modifying or filtering that response before it goes anywhere else.
And only after my client software has had a chance to look at and maybe tweak the AI's answer, then it sends the final result back to the server application that asked in the first place.
That's the loop, precisely. You kind of operating through your client software, you're positioned as this essential gatekeeper, both for the input, the prompt, and the output, the completion.
Okay, let's dig into that request the server sends. What kind of information can it actually pack in there?
The docs describe a standard message format. It can include the conversation history, that's the messages field. And what's interesting is it supports not just text, but image content too.
Images. Seriously. Yeah. So an app could ask an AI to analyze a picture on my device, but that request still has to go through my client where I have some control.
According to the source material, yes. That capability is intended to be there. The server can also suggest model preferences. So it might say, hey, I'd prefer this model, maybe prioritizing cost or speed or, raw intelligence. There's also an optional system prompt. That's like giving the AI some underlying rules or personality before the main question.
Right, the hidden instructions. And what about like the surrounding context? How much info from the app interaction gets sent?
That's controlled by include context. It can be set to none, or include context just from the server, the app making the request, or potentially even context from all servers that use MCP. That could give the AI a much broader memory of what you've been doing.
Wow, okay.
And servers can also try to fine-tune the generation with things like temperature that affects randomness, creativity versus predictability or max tokens, just limiting the length of the answer.
Okay, this is the crucial bit for you, the listener. The documentation talks about these human-in-the-loop controls. What specifically are users supposed to be able to do?
Right. So for prompts, the requests coming in, clients are designed to show you what's being asked. You should be able to modify it or just say no, reject it.
That seems huge. Like if an app wants to analyze some sensitive text.
Exactly. Your client could be set up to strip that sensitive part out before the AI ever sees it. Clients can also filter or change those system prompt instructions. And crucially, control, which include context setting, is actually used no matter what the server asked for.
And what about on the way back?
Yeah.
The AI's answer, the completion.
Similar idea. Clients are intended to show you the generated completion. You should be able to modify or reject that too. It's like a final check, right? Correcting mistakes, filtering out weird stuff before the app gets it.
Makes sense.
And clients can filter or modify those completions, and ultimately you, through your client, have the final say on which specific AI model is actually used for the sampling, even if the server wanted a different one.
So, stepping back from the tech details, what's the big picture here? Why design sampling this way?
Fundamentally, it seems to be about building trust and user agency directly into how we interact with AI. By routing everything through the client, MCP sampling lets apps do sophisticated things. Think agentic workflows, analyzing data, or generating complex reports, but it keeps you in the loop transparently.
Right.
It directly tackles those big security and privacy concerns by allowing validation, sanitizing information, making sure you're aware and can manage how your data interacts with these powerful models.
Sounds pretty robust. But does the documentation mention any limitations or caveats?
It does. The source material points out that what's actually possible depends heavily on how your specific client software is implemented. And ultimately, your choices, your actions as the user, dictate the sampling behavior. Plus, there are the practical limits, context size, potential API rate limits, the cost of using certain models, and whether a model is even available.
Okay, so summing up, MCP sampling is this method for apps to use LLMs, but channeled through your device, your client, with the whole design centered on giving you visibility and control.
Exactly. And what this means for you, really, is that as applications get smarter and use more AI, protocols like MCP are trying to build in layers of user oversight from the start. It's not meant to be a black box you can't see inside.
Considering that the client can step in on both the request and the response. It does raise an interesting question for the future, doesn't it? How will client software actually evolve to make using that control really intuitive, like easy and seamless for everybody, not just tech experts? Something to think about as these AI-powered apps become more and more common.